Whether you're attending a church service online or in person, the whole reason that you can hear somebody talk when they take the stage is because they're using a microphone. And microphones come in all different shapes and sizes for different reasons, and they all sound different too. Like this one. This is a Blue Yeti microphone, and I'm not actually using it. This is just a prop. I actually have a microphone that's clipped onto my shirt here, like right under the collar that you might have seen when I started, but I'm not actually using that one either. Now the one I'm using is clipped on top of my camera, and it looks like this. This is a shotgun microphone. Well, today we're not talking about shotgun microphones, but I am gonna cover 3 different types of microphones that churches commonly use, and I'll even give you a recommendation for each category. Let's do this. So the first type of microphone we're talking about are head-worn microphones, which wrap around your entire head. And the pros to these is that the microphone actually stays really close to your mouth, so you always have consistent and level audio. And you also obviously will have your hands free. You don't have to hold anything while you talk. And if you're like me, that's a huge benefit because I do stuff like this all the time with my illustrations and I use my hands all the time. Plus, since this one is worn around your head and not clipped onto your shirt or something, you don't have to worry about like clothes rustling up against it and causing weird noises. And since you're not holding it, you also don't have to worry about that grip like hand sound. If you've ever heard that when people pick up a mic or if they grip it too tight, it's not gonna have any of that. It's just floating around your head. Cons though, they're not exactly the most stylish thing. They kind of remind me of like headgear, which I got made fun of for in middle school. Now you can actually get the over-the-ear type microphone, which I'm not completely covering today, but the reason I'm not covering that is those kind of come with their own obstacle of making sure they're fastened around the ear correctly. They're not gonna wiggle around. You have to tape them to the face sometimes, stuff like that. So the head-worn ones, they're not that stylish, but at least you don't have those issues. Another con though is they're not actually that comfortable to wear. A lot of times in the frame, they have this like metal wiring, which is there so that you can kind of bend it around your ears and around your head so that it stays stable, but wearing it for a long time can be uncomfortable then. I still do think this is a great option though, and some of the biggest conferences I've ever been to with thousands of people seem to go on this route, so maybe there's something to it. Now this one is pricey, but the suggestion I have for the higher end head-worn microphone would be the Countryman H6. Countryman are the absolute leaders when it comes to like really discreet, tiny, head-worn or even lavalier microphones. Sound quality is great. They're usually really small, so they don't even look that bad. Their build quality is durable, and they're just absolute experts in their field. So their customer service is good, and whatever you're getting, you can guarantee is gonna be a good product. On the more budget-friendly side, it's gonna be the AKG Pro Audio, the HC577. This doesn't sound the best in my opinion, it really doesn't, but it's gonna get the job done, and if that hands-free option is important to you and you want level audio, it's gonna give you that. Our next category are also a hand-free option, and that's gonna be these lavalier microphones. These are the type that usually clip onto a shirt, so there's nothing around the head or your ears or anything like that. They're usually below the neck. Now I do still think these give consistent level audio, but it's not quite as good as like head-worn where it's just always by your mouth. Because when you're moving around like this, and your shirt's kind of moving around and your mouth is moving, maybe you're looking up when you're talking or down, the mic's down here, so it is going to kind of fluctuate depending on what you're doing. But they are discreet and very easy to hide, so you don't have to worry about them being like an eyesore. And again, hands-free. Those are kind of all the pros. As for the cons, like I said, you don't always get level or consistent audio depending on what your speaker is doing with their mouth when they're talking or how they're positioned. And if you don't secure it right, it can rustle around the clothing that you clip it to, resulting in bad audio. My recommendation for a higher end lav mic again is going to be from Countryman. This one is the B6. Now this is an omnidirectional mic, which you might think you want directional so it only picks up from one area, but when you buy those, they are very coned and precise in their direction. So oftentimes it's tricky to nail. I always recommend getting omnidirectional. It's also insanely small and light. It weighs less than 2 grams. It comes with its own carrying case and mounting clip. And yeah, if you're looking for a discreet option as a lav mic, you'll never see this thing. On the lower end side of things is actually the one I have right here, and I use it all the time as my backup mic. This is gonna be the Shure MVL, and yeah, it looks like this. It's not quite as discreet as a Countryman B6, but it's still hard to see, especially if you run it up through a shirt and just kind of clip it on the inside. It comes with a windscreen, and since this clip kind of has a bulky spacing here, it can make it really easy to kind of position it in a way where the microphone's not rustling. It kind of gives that extra buffer space. Shure also is a very well-known and popular brand for a reason. They stand behind their products. They make so many different kinds and their build quality is amazing. Now, before I move on to the last category, I do have to mention the head-worn and the lav mics. They're only the mics that I've talked about. You're also going to need what they plug into. Head-worn and lav microphones get plugged into something called a transmitter. It usually looks like a little box like this, and it gets clipped onto your belt loop. And that transmitter actually gets the signal that it has and sends it to something called a receiver, which means if you're going any of these routes, the Headworn or the Lav microphone, you will need a transmitter and receiver. And that receiver, by the way, just ends up getting plugged into your sound system, usually by like an XLR cable. Now, I'm not gonna spend too much more time on these, but if you're looking for recommendations, I have two that are both from Shure. The first one is gonna be the SLX-D1 and D4, that's the higher end option, and the more budget friendly is gonna be the BLX1 and 4. So make sure to check them out. All right, and lastly, we're talking about handheld mics. These are the more traditional ones that you see, but we're specifically talking about wireless ones. And just as I mentioned how you need receivers and transmitters before, usually these actually come with their own transmitter and the microphone itself has a receiver built in. Now the pros to these are they are super easy to use. You just kind of pick them up and start using them. And if you have to like cough or sneeze or like sniff in like that, you don't get that awkward moment where you hear all that through the speakers. That happens all the time with Headworn mics. I've been preaching before with a handheld mic, and when I had to sneeze, I just moved it away from my face, sneezed, said excuse me, and moved on. You can't really do that with a Headworn. You kind of got to panic and try to cover it or something. But the cons are obviously you're not hand-free. You always have to be holding it, and you kind of get that gripping and moving sound or picking it up, or if you set it down, you get all of those noises with the microphone. My higher end recommendation for handheld wireless mics is one that I actually use when I preach at my church. It's the GLXDR124 R, which is a mouthful, but it's really good. And you can get it bundled in with a transmitter and receiver system for just under $1,000. And it's got about a 300-foot range before the signal starts breaking up. If I'm wrong, I'll put it on the screen. The budget-friendly option is gonna be the Gemini UHF-6200. I think I'm saying that right. I'll put it on the screen. And in my experience, Gemini honestly doesn't sound that great, but it definitely will get the job done. You get two microphones. And honestly, if you have a really good sound guy that knows what he's doing with like equalizers and compressors and things like that, you can really get a bad sound to turn into a decent sound. In fact, I'll even turn off my amplifier, compressor, equalizer, and denoiser right now. How's that sound? I'm talking right now, I'm about to turn it back on, and now it's back on. I did it all in editing, but still, see, it goes a long way. Now, if you're curious, like I said at the beginning of the video, I have a shotgun mic attached to the top of my camera, and it's the Video Mic Pro Plus that I'm using right now, which we're not covering today. There's also studio microphones or USB microphones like this. So there's so many different kinds that we can still cover that we didn't talk about today. Let me know in the comments down below if you have any questions about those mics or if you want another video like this covering even more. But either way, make sure to like and subscribe so that you're notified the next time we make even more content that can help out churches just like yours. Peace.